All right. All right, everybody. I think we're gonna get started. So good evening. I have to say, awesome turnout. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We've got a lot of people both on Zoom and in person, and a very good showing for all different boards between finance committee, select board, con, planning, assessors, council of aging, Parks Commission. So this is really good to see. So thank you all for coming. So I am not, by the way, I'm Rob Lucier, the planner. I think most of you know me. I will not be doing the training. Brian Riley from KP Law, KP Law, our town council will be doing the training. So without further ado, I'll pull up the slideshow and we can get started.
Great. So good evening, everyone. I am Brian Riley, a partner with KP Law, the town council. And this is something we like to do for our client towns. We don't charge for it. There are certain laws that it's good to get a little refresher now and then. Conflict of interest is certainly one. There are some things which are really obvious you shouldn't do ethically. But there's a lot of kind of traps for when you can unintentionally get in trouble over something as well. So I like to try to, give kind of a broad brush over it. I'll just say at the beginning, if you have a specific question in the course of, doing your job, the Ethics Commission's website is actually pretty good and not overly legalese. They have a lot of kind of primers on various topics. They have a lot of summaries for, the summary of the conflict law for select boards, for building inspectors, for DPW. So you can find some pretty good stuff there. And they also have a legal department where you can call up and talk to an attorney from the commission, and there's no charge for that too. So I told Rob I did one of these for the open meeting elsewhere last week, and after standing for about an hour and a quarter, my knees really were letting me hear it. So I'm going to sit if that's all right. And also, so I'm going to go through, but if anybody has either a question or a comment, go raise your hand and I'll recognize you. I kind of like doing it that way rather than telling people to save it for the end. Kind of keep it, keep it for the moment. So the second page, Rob. This is just our legal disclaimer. But I would mention that, I'm kind of, like I say, doing a broad brush here on the various sections which apply to municipal employees. But whether something might trigger a piece of the conflict law or not is really fact specific. So, I just want to put that out there. Don't assume just because I say, well, if you do this, it's a violation. Yeah, there may be some wrinkles, there may be some exemptions which you can use to, avoid the problem. So we're going to stay fairly general. Okay. So the conflict of interest law. This is chapter 268A of the general laws. And then the State Ethics Commission is the agency which kind of interprets it. They give advice on the legal side on how to avoid problems. They also have an enforcement side. You don't want to hear from them. That's partly why I'm here. And then the Ethics Commission has also adopted some regulations. You're probably familiar with one section or another of the Code of Mass Regulations, CMRs, and theirs are in 930. I'm going to mention a couple of them. They're very detailed and kind of, in some cases, they've created additional exemptions, which is a good thing. So, okay, next. So these 268A has about, I think about 27 sections, but there are some that only apply to state employees and officials, and some that only apply to county employees and officials. There's not as many counties around as there used to be, but the statute still covers them. I'm going to talk mainly about these, section 3, about whether you can accept a gift or a discount or something along those lines. And then 17 through 20 are kind of the real meat of it for municipal employees. And then section 23 is the last one, the code of conduct that applies to all levels of government. Okay. So section 1 of the statute includes a lot of definitions, which are then used throughout different sections of it. And municipal employee, this is taken straight from the statute, and you will see that it's very broad. So holding off an office or a paid, appointed position, certainly you're covered. But most of the time, it doesn't matter if you're compensated or not, if you're full or part-time. Intermittent, just temporary consultant basis, you may still be a municipal employee as the Ethics Commission defines it. And the only two exceptions that the statute definition actually has are elected members of a town meeting. I think you all have an open town meeting. There are some larger places that have elected representative town meetings. If that's all that person has is that elected office, they're not considered a municipal employee. And then even more rare, members of an elected charter commission. For most other people doing anything for this town, you are considered a municipal employee, whether you're paid or not.
Next slide.
Yeah, next slide, sorry. Okay, you can go to the next one too.
Next one.
Yeah, oh, sorry, yep, I'll get better.
That's all right.
Okay, there was one in between, but I basically covered it already, paid or unpaid, full, part-time, seasonal. And even some contractors, if let's say the planning board hires an engineer to do peer review for some project. While that engineer has that contract, he or she also is probably considered a municipal employee. So then they have to watch out for other things they might be doing for private clients. Special municipal employee is separately defined. It basically it covers some town positions, but typically it has to have been designated by vote of the select board. And it is either an unpaid position, a lot of your boards don't receive any compensation, or if it's a part-time position, maybe a part-time building inspector. If it is does not compensate for more than 800 hours in a calendar year, that is also eligible to be a special municipal employee if the select board takes that vote. And this really is only important in section 17 and section 20, which I'm going to go over. The prohibitions and restrictions in those two sections can apply less stringently to a special municipal employee. And that's really in there to kind of encourage people who might otherwise not want to tangle up their private life with, potentially having an issue under this law. Certain positions can get this designation and it applies not quite, the statute's not quite as stringent. Okay, next. Another section, another definition, immediate family. This comes up in section 19, which I will get to in order. It's defined as the municipal employee, their spouse, and then each of the municipal employee and their spouses, parents, children, brothers, and sisters. So the Ethics Commission reads that very literally. So, your spouse's brother is going to fall under that. But if I'm a municipal employee, my brother's wife is not, because my brother falls under that definition, but not his spouse. So you got to kind of look at each situation. If someone's going to come before your board that you may be related to somehow, you might want to just consider that, whether this is something I need to disclose or avoid. And disclosure, there are a bunch of exemptions. I'll talk about some of them where, in order to really protect yourself and qualify, you need to fill out a written disclosure of whatever the facts are. file it with your appointing authority, or if you're elected with the town clerk. The Ethics Commission itself has all these disclosure forms online, although you're not required to use those. Okay. So section 3, this says that a municipal employee may not, or actually it applies to state and county as well, but you may not accept a gift of, quote, substantial value, and in the regulations, Ethics Commission says that's $50 or more, if it is given for or because of any official act performed or to be performed under your official responsibility. And, basically again, the theory behind this law is if you have this government position, your loyalty needs to be to the government. You shouldn't be out there accepting gifts. Obviously some people get in a lot of trouble by accepting big gifts and if they get caught. But, so that's the gist of it. It's $50. If somebody, it's not entirely prohibited, but if, let's say you've been working with somebody in their private capacity and they think you've really helped them out and they'd like to give you something as a gesture of their, gratitude. Well, if it's something that's maybe $30, $40, you actually can accept it. You may or may not want to, that's your choice. If you do accept it, you need to fill out a written disclosure and file it with your appointing authority. If it's over $50 and it's related to something you did or something they don't want you to do, basically, you need to say no. Nice to offer, but it's just trouble if you accept it. There are some exceptions that the Ethics Commission has come up with. If it's entirely unrelated to your office or any official action that someone might do, maybe the same person that you are, in contact with in their private capacity, maybe they found out it's your birthday and they want to give you a birthday present, and it's got nothing to do with whatever you may have done with them in the past. That's not a problem. If there's some sort of raffle going on, maybe you've gone to a conference of other people, in your positions, and they have a raffle. Even if it's worth more than $50, that's not a problem, because obviously you won it randomly and it wasn't because of something specific that you were doing. The employee phone discount plan, that was an issue like 20 years ago, was that I was dealing with the Ethics Commission over. And they initially were like, well, you're saving money on this phone because you work for a municipality. That seems like a problem. But then they decided that if this was kind of a widespread industry practice and it was being offered to all municipal employees, not a particular department or something, they decided that was okay, which was good. Occasionally they come up with a common sense, which is nice. Okay. Yep, I pretty much covered this too. So if it's less than $50, and it is connected to something, with your official, or your town position, you need to, you can accept it, but you have to fill out a disclosure and file it. If anybody wanted to ask, the town clerk or the appointing authority for copies of any disclosures, those are considered public records. So you can keep that in the back of your mind as well. Okay, next. All right, so as I say, most of these ones in this paragraph, you can find in the Ethics Commission regulations. They've come up with a bunch of different ones. For example, if maybe the DPW is looking to buy some, big expensive equipment, and a manufacturer wants to fly the superintendent down to take a look at something. If it's legitimate job-related public purpose, that is considered a kind of an exception. That is not a illegal gift. There's disclosure involved, but kind of training events and conferences typically are okay if they give you a break because of this position you have. Incidental hospitality, that's one of those things. also not considered a violation of, section 3. There's some more details in the regulation, but, you know, if you ever find yourself in this position, somebody's offering you something like that, come to our conference and we'll knock, you know, half off the, admission price. You take a look at those or contact the Ethics Commission and say, I'm being offered this, but maybe it fits in this exemption. Am I okay? My office does it too. But the legal division at Ethics is actually pretty good at getting right back to you. So now we skip over the state and county stuff and get up to section 17, all right? So this has two prongs to it. Section 17 says that a municipal employee cannot either receive compensation from anyone other than the town or act as agent or attorney for anyone other than the town in a particular matter in which the town is a party or has a direct and substantial interest. As I said earlier, this is, you know, you may have a town position, maybe you're on a board. You also work for a company in Bellingham that may have to interact with the town now and then. This is to make sure that when you're wearing your town hat, you're putting all the town's interest first. This is one where special municipal employees are a little different. So as I'll get to, acting as an agent means you're sort of representing some other person, some other company in contacting the town. That is prohibited. However, for special municipal employees, it's only prohibited if whoever that other person or company is going to come before your own board. If it only is going to deal with other departments, that is not an issue. So you, depending on what your position is, if you're on a board, the town clerk's office hopefully would have a list of who the select board has designated as special employees over the years. So that would be the first place to check. It does require a vote of the select board. So the next one, acting as an agent, that is not defined in the statute itself.
The next slide.
Next slide, yeah. But the Ethics Commission has over the years kind of come up with a test, and it's very broader than you might think. I mean, acting as an attorney, that's pretty straightforward. Somebody is an attorney and they want to represent a client in dealing with the town. If they also sit on a town board in their spare time, that could be a problem. But it's not that, it doesn't have to be that formal. If you have a town position and you want to contact the town on behalf of your employer, you probably can't do that. Contacting a town official, acting as a liaison between the town and a private party. Not quite sure what hat you're wearing when you do that. Filing documents or plans with a town office, or even serving as a spokesperson before a town authority. We've had ethics say that if a town official, town board member lived in a particular neighborhood and there's this big project plan and the neighborhoods are all, concerned about the impact that's gonna have. If you're a town official, you could be part of that neighborhood group, which is very informal, but don't be the one who goes in front of the select board or the planning board to speak on behalf of that group. Do it behind the scenes, but let somebody else do the talking. Because ethics can say you were acting as an agent for someone other than the town in something obviously the town had an interest because you were in front of a board. Okay. All right. I'm talking ahead on some of these slides, so we'll make them quick. It's only if you're representing someone, and say you can be involved with a group like that, or if it's your employer who is going to come before the town, you can certainly draw plans and memos and that kind of thing, but just don't be the face of that when you have to go before a board or talk to a town official. And also, even though you may be acting behind the scenes, again, section 17 also says you can't be compensated by anyone other than the town regarding a matter that the town is a party to. So you may need to kind of keep that in your mind too, if you're working on some project for your employer and you're gonna get a commission, for example. You might need to double check and make sure that's not a problem under section 17. Okay, we can do the next one. Yeah. This is an example of an exemption which is not in the statute, but the Ethics Commission decided that maybe section 17 was a little too heavy-handed in certain cases. There are town boards, I'm sure there are here, they're all over the place, that have private groups that want to really support them. Council on Aging with the Senior Center is a very common one, Friends of the Senior Center. Maybe it's a nonprofit incorporated, or maybe it's just a town group. But if, and a lot of times you have the same person who wants to be involved, they get on the Council on Aging because they're really passionate about it. They also want to be part of this Friends group. This exception says that if someone wants to do that, and using my example, the Council on Aging kind of votes to have that member be their representative in the Friends group, then that person doesn't have to worry so much about what hat am I wearing when I'm talking, to the Council on Aging. But they are supposed to be kind of formally designated by the board. Otherwise, they need to, again, try to stay behind the scenes and not look like they're wearing two hats at the same time. Okay, next one. And this, as I say, acting as an agent, you're not supposed to do, except for those exceptions. But you can always advocate for yourself. Just as an example, maybe someone who's on the Board of Assessors thinks their taxes are too high and they want to apply for an abatement, which of course will come before the Board of Assessors. And that member would have to sit on the other side of the table and try to make their case for an abatement. That is okay. The ethics just says that you can represent yourself in dealing with the town. But if that piece of property that you want to have an abatement is owned by a trust or a company you own, something like that, that's not going to be allowed, because you're not there for yourself, you're there for that, whatever that entity is. Okay, next. So section 19 and 20 come up way more often than any of the other ones, so it's good to have at least a handle on what these say and how they work. So section 19, it doesn't matter if you're a special municipal employee, there's no special treatment for them. It applies to all appointed or elected, paid, unpaid. You can't participate in your official capacity in any particular matter in which you yourself, your immediate family, so there's that definition again, or your private business or employer, if they have a financial interest. Now, unfortunately, financial interest is not defined in the statute either, but ethics has said for years that if there's any kind of financial impact at all on this thing which you're being asked to act on officially, is prohibited. It doesn't matter if it's small, large, positive, or negative. And so you really need to keep your eyes out when something's going to come to your desk or come before the board you sit on. Do I have any potential financial interest in this? Am I related to anybody who does? Or is it the company I work for? There is an exemption in the statute for appointed officials. Let's say you sit on a board, an application from your employer is going to come in, but maybe you're already down a member. You really don't want to recuse yourself from this matter, and you can be objective and treat it and keep the town's interests foremost in your head. You can go to your appointing authority, assuming you're not elected. And there's a particular disclosure form, you disclose the facts, and you ask your appointing official, whether it's a board or a sole officer, to approve your exemption, and if they approve that and sign that form for you, then you can go ahead and participate and you're not violating section 19. Yeah,
If a company developer were to come before the board, and if you don't work for the developer, but a person of your immediate family does, you don't necessarily have a financial interest, but your
Yeah.
immediate family does by simple fact of payroll.
yeah, well, this is where they start to get nuanced. That's a great question. So it's, the way the statute works, do you or a member of your immediate family have a financial interest in it? And the Ethics Commission does, I think, have a kind of reasonable approach to this. Let's say a member of your immediate family works for that company, but they're on salary. And maybe they're gonna be part of that project, maybe they're on some other project. If whatever is being filed here, your immediate family member doesn't, it's not gonna make any effect on their salary, they're not getting commissions, they're not working on it, what have you. Then they really don't have a financial interest in it. That
Would
makes
your own
sense.
bonus affect that?
Yeah, commissions or bonuses or something that changes the answer, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's it for that side. All right, so, so like I say, section 19 comes up all the time. And you just kind of need to keep an eye out for something that's gonna come before you officially. If you, your family, or your business or employer, might be said to have a financial interest in it. I will say that, before I talk about 20, Ethics Commission also says, sometimes it seems a little gray as to whether my immediate family member might have a financial interest or not. Ethics has said that, if it has to be sort of either an actual financial interest, you can see it, or it's reasonably foreseeable. So, maybe my brother, works for this company, and if the project comes in and gets approved by all the town boards, he's gonna get a bonus at the end. Well, that's reasonably foreseeable, so I should be sitting out. I should step down when that project comes in. But they say, if it's remote or speculative, then it doesn't trigger section 19. You don't have to play out all kinds of crazy hypotheticals. And have you required to step aside. But like I say, it is kind of a gray area, and you need to take a look at it if one of these situations pops up for you. Okay. Section 20 is by far the worst section of this law to deal with. It's really, really long, hard to read, and it has a million kind of exceptions and ways that it plays out. In a nutshell, it says you, the municipal employee, can't have a financial interest in a contract with the town unless you qualify for one of the various exemptions that is in section 20, in some cases in the regulations as well. And contract, the way they read it, if you have a financial interest in a contract, this also includes, let's say you sit on a board, unpaid, sit on the ZBA or something. Now you've been offered a part-time or even full-time position with the town that's paid. Can you keep the ZBA position? Well, you're now acquiring a financial interest in a contract with the town, even though it's kind of an employment situation. So you're gonna have to either look at the exemptions, see if you qualify for one. If you just can't, then you might have to resign from the ZBA. We work hard, and the Ethics Commission actually works hard to try to shoehorn you into one of the exemptions. Because people if they wanna, do both. But, as I say, it's a tricky statute to work with. There are, lots of exemptions in this section. If you're a special municipal employee, it's a lot easier to either have an interest in a contract, maybe even a, supplier contract with the town, or acquiring a second position. Most of the time, just fill out a disclosure, file it with your appointing authority that you're acquiring this do financial interest, and you're okay, if you're a special municipal, a lot trickier if you're not. There's one particularly where you can take on a second position that's in a part-time or call firefighter, public safety, capacity. Because obviously they want people who are qualified to do that, to be able to do it without violating the conflict law. There's one or two that have to do with housing subsidy program, maybe community development block grants or something like that. Which is considered a contract with the town, but they've got them, you know, again, to make it easier for people who might qualify for that, and it's an important thing to be able to, try to get if you're eligible. And not have section 20 make you ineligible. So if you're not a special employee, you can go to the next one. You have the quote, regular employee exemption. And aside from all these very specific ones, this one is kind of basic. You hold one town position. And you want to find out if you can take on, you can acquire this new financial interest. In either a position or a contract. So the contract has to be with a different department with where your regular job is. If you work for the DPW and the contract is with the school department, okay, you cross that one off. The contract has to be awarded after public notice. In the old days, that meant it was public newspaper, but now it could be on a website, public posting, bulletin board, something like that. That's to try to keep away from, you know, being an insider, getting something that the rest of the public might be interested in as well. If it's a kind of a contract, more like selling supplies to the town, and you meet those first two, all you have to do is sign a disclosure and file it with the town clerk. If it's for personal services, second town position, for example, it has to be outside the normal hours of your first position. You can't get compensated for more than 500 hours in the calendar year, which is something like 9 to 10 hours a week. The head of the agency that's offering this position needs to sign this exemption form saying basically none of our current employees are available to do this. This is actually an opening that we want to fill. And the select board has to take a vote in open session to approve that exemption for you. So it's a lot of times you can get partway through this and suddenly it doesn't work. But once in a while, it can be a good help. Okay. So here's an example of a exemption created by regulation. Before this came along, we had, keep going to DPW. Let's say the full-time DPW employee, there's a vacancy on the zoning board. Towns having a really hard time to fill it. And this person's willing to serve on the unpaid zoning board to help out. Maybe they're interested in it. And they'd like to, you know, help get that filled. Before this exemption came along, the way ethics looked at it was, can you take on that ZBA position? Yes, it's not compensated, so that doesn't even trigger section 20. But once you're on it, do you qualify for an exemption to keep your full-time paid actual job? And I can't even remember how many times I had to tell people, sorry, you can't be a good guy and volunteer for this board because of that. But they did at least partially address that ethics finally. And they said, if you're a town official, you're paid, you can take on an uncompensated position, a second position. And if you do that, you no longer have to look back the other way and qualify for an exemption on the unpaid position. They do say that uncompensated means no salary or stipend is even offered. You can't say, well, I know it pays $2,000 a year stipend, I just won't accept it. The Ethics Commission said, no, it has to be a legitimately unpaid position. But at least that's better than it used to be. Okay. So as I say, contract, very broadly interpreted, you know, not just sort of a goods and services contract, but, you know, taking on a second town position. It applies to someone who wants to buy from or sell to the town, you know, personal property. Surplus property is available. Sometimes the town may have a kind of a useless piece of real estate. And they want to dispose of it. You know, there's a statute about making that kind of public notice. But that is clearly something that, you would have to qualify for one of the exemptions, maybe that long section 20B, if you wanted to, bid on it and try to buy it. Ethics did add by regulation an exemption if a municipal employee wants to sell property to the town. It's specific to that and says, we don't consider that a contract problem under section 20. It does not apply going the other way. If you're a town employee and you want to bid on or purchase real property from the town, you're gonna have to squeeze into one of the exemptions, in there. Okay. All right. Then you get past section 20, and then section 23, known as the Code of Conduct, is kind of a catch-all. Things that didn't fall specifically under some of those other things. There are still some things out there that you want to avoid doing while you hold your, public office or employment. The two that come up the most are section 23B2, which says you cannot use or attempt to use one's office to obtain for yourself or others any unwarranted privilege of substantial value, which again is $50, not properly available to similarly situated individuals. In other words, improperly using your office, kind of inside info, tipping off somebody who wants to, bid on a project, anything like that, is prohibited. The violation there is only if you literally do that, improperly use your office or information to try to, give someone a privilege that the rest of the public would not be able to find out about. The next one, 23B3. This is known as the appearance section because sometimes you might be held to violate it even though you didn't actually do anything wrong. But what it says is that a municipal employee, again, special employees are not treated differently, may not act in a manner which would cause a reasonable person having knowledge of the relevant circumstances to conclude that you're acting with bias or favoritism, whether it's towards yourself, towards someone else, someone you know. Any kind of personal reasons rather than, again, the town's interest first. And so this one, as it says, well, what example I like to give is, I'm on a board and someone is coming before looking for the approval of my board for something or other, maybe a license. And everybody in town knows that this person on the other side of the table has been my best friend since high school. And so, can I sit on that? Well, he's not an immediate family. There's no kind of financial interest for me. But maybe I'm thinking in my head, well, people might think that I'm gonna vote yes for this because it's my best friend sitting there. If I want to, other than that, none of the other sections apply. But I might think, well, I want to kind of protect myself because if I participate here and I vote in favor of it, somebody might drop a dime to me, to the Ethics Commission. Next thing you know, I'm hearing from the enforcement side saying, someone reported that you, acted with bias in your office. However, this section specifically says that it's unreasonable for someone to make that conclusion if you have made a written disclosure. If you don't need to read it out at a meeting or anything, you fill it out, you write out all the facts that might lead someone to that conclusion, and you either file it with your appointing authority or again with the town clerk if you're elected. Do that before you take the action, before that hearing, before you have to sign off on anything. Then if somebody does drop a dime on you, and you hear from the Ethics Commission, you can say, oh, well, I get that it may have looked like maybe I was showing favoritism, but I filled out my form before that hearing. If you do that, you're completely protected. So this comes up all the time, and I often say, I write a lot of opinions on this stuff, and I often say, you know, if you're even asking me the question, maybe it's in the back of your head that it might look to someone, it might look a little funny. Fill this thing out, file it, then you're completely safe to go forward. So, you know, it's, ounce of prevention kind of thing. Okay. The next couple of slides, as I say, the Ethics Commission on their website, they have a whole bunch of kind of advisories on particular subjects. I just picked this one. Fundraising or soliciting on behalf of town department. You know, maybe the library wants to build a new wing and the library staff would like to conduct fundraising. That is, there's nothing illegal about that. You know, donations come in, the treasurer keeps it in a gift account. And that's perfectly fine, but the Ethics Commission saw fit to come out with this, this advisory about 13 years ago, I guess. And said, if you're a town employee or official and you're engaged in soliciting private parties, businesses, what have you, to make donations, can't use any overt pressure. You have to use objective standards in dealing with anyone who is solicited. And any soliciting, there's whoever's kind of running the solicitation needs to keep a list of names of anyone who was, whether it's a local business or what have you, anyone that was solicited. You know, obviously overt pressure, you know, I don't know what kind of leverage you might have in your position, but you know, you don't want to threaten anybody, make a donation, or I'll make it uncomfortable for you. You can do the next slide. And this advisory also talks about inherently coercive. And that, they say, basically is, let's say there's a business which is applying for some kind of license or permit from the town. You know, are you going to approach that business while that is pending before the official, some other official, and ask them to make a donation? I mean, really, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're supposed to kind of give a second thought and decide, you know, is it possible that this person themselves might be thinking, you know, wow, maybe if I make a donation, I'll get treated more fairly or something. And again, you want to avoid that. So the ethics says, you know, as the person making a solicitation, you have a duty to kind of look into this. Am I asking somebody who might feel pressured, even though I'm not being, you know, I'm not personally doing the pressure. All right, more, almost done. And these are other sort of things which are generally fall under one section or another, not just appearances. Using town resources for your personal business, you know, maybe you have a personal business on the side and you're using the town copy machine to whip off a bunch of flyers, you know, that's not good. Directing subordinates to act on some private interest you have. I remember something some years ago, not in Bellingham, where a DPW director had somebody with a truck full of asphalt go dump it on his driveway. Not a great thing. And then I always leave this, don't you know who I am in there, because when I first started, which is about 30 years ago now, I remember hearing about this one, a select board member got pulled over for speeding in his own town. And he said something to the effect of, don't you know who I am? You know, I hire you guys. And I believe I believe he still got stuck with the ticket, but he also had to answer to the Ethics Commission when someone turned him in. And they said, yeah, that was totally improperly using your office to try to gain some advantage. So he got whacked twice.
My wife taught in public school. She got that from somebody on their select board or
Oh, yeah,
Board of Education or something like that.
right, right. Yeah, don't you know who I am is never a good tactic. Okay, you can do the next one. This is the end. So this is the State Ethics Commission. This is their website. as I say, if you, something kind of figures in your head, and you're like, oh, you know, I gotta deal with this next week, I wonder if this crosses any line. You call up the legal division, you ask for the attorney of the day. And if you call in the morning, I think you leave a voicemail. They're actually really good at getting back to you that day or maybe the next day. Like I say, it's free, and you can run the facts past them and they'll say, oh, you know, you can't do that, or, well, fill out this disclosure form and you should be okay. So it's a very useful service, and as I say, the website is actually pretty good too. That is it. So, you know, again, I thank you, hopefully you get a little something useful or something you might come to mind later on. I'll be here for a couple minutes if anybody has anything to follow up, but otherwise, oh, sure.
Another question.
Yeah.
Town youth sport groups. They're not purely affiliated with the town, but indirectly, they absolutely are. The coaches. Do they fall into these guidelines?
Like, I mean, I guess if a coach is really only affiliated with a little league, which is not a town division, right? Then I'd say they're not. You know, people, you know, teacher coaching a school team clearly is, because as a teacher, they're a municipal employee. But I don't think if they're not holding some office, performing some service for the town, you know, like, if you're a little league coach, you're performing a service for the local little league organization, but I think if it's separate from the town, then I don't think they would be. Yeah. Other than that, again, I appreciate everyone coming in, and hope you have a good night.
Just see if, I don't know
Oh,
if
sure, yeah.
anybody on Zoom has any questions. I know
Okay.
there's quite a few people.
Yeah.
But speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'm good.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe.
That's good. That means that people on Zoom can actually hear us and that it wasn't just in 45 minutes of silence. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Robert.
Welcome.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bill.
So it's okay to leave the meeting, right?
Sure, Joe.
You're dismissed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.